Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, January 16th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We do begin each of our meetings with an invocation. If you would like to join us, please do so. Today we have Lisa Crump with Church for All Nations to lead us in that.
Father God, we thank you for this new day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Father, we thank you for helping protect our area from the extreme cold. Lord God, we ask your protection over our schools, over our first responders, Lord, over our shelters, Lord, so that people are safe and secure. Lord God, we pray for our medical facilities so that there is health and there's peace and security in our region, Lord God. Father, we thank you for the infrastructure that you are building here in our very rapidly expanding area. Father, we ask that you will be with our businesses, Lord, with our government, Lord, with Israel, and all places where there is conflict. Lord, we ask for this election year that you will govern, Lord God. Father, your word tells us that righteousness exalts a nation, and so, Lord, we want our nation to be exalted. Lord, we ask that you will be with this agenda, that you will be with each commissioner. Father, that you will help them to come into agreement for any votes that need to be made. Father, for those that are presenting, we ask that there will be clarity and conciseness so that there's great understanding of what's being presented today. And Lord God, from your word, we ask that your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ms. Crump. And we have Clerk and Recorder Steve Schleicher to lead us in the pledge today.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3.
Item number 3 is staff emergency items, and I'm unaware of any staff emergency items today.
Item 4.
Item number 4 is changes, postponements, and notice of the next meeting. I'm unaware of any changes or postponements to today's agenda, and the next meeting will be Tuesday, January 23rd at 9:00 a.m.
And before we move on to item number 5, I do need a motion to excuse Commissioner Williams, who is expected to be here between 9:20 and 9:30.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Williams.
Second. That has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 4-0. Commissioner Williams is excused from item number 5.
Item number 5 is the consent calendar, inclusive of items 5A through 5N1.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on any item on the consent calendar, 5A through 5N1? Hearing none in the room. Any online? Thank you. Up here for discussion and a motion. Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out, once again, we have a couple of items on here related to the Rex and Meridian project. I'm excited to see that moving along, and I'd be happy to move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
That has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 4-0 with Commissioner Williams excused. Item number 6.
Item number 6 is comments by elected officials and commissioner liaison reports. 6A, El Paso County 2023 Coordinated Election Canvass Board Minority Report. Steve Schleicher, Clerk and Recorder.
Good morning, Commissioner. Steve Schleicher, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. I come before you today in response to comments and suggestions provided to this board by one of our assigned 2023 Coordinated Election Canvass Board members and other interested citizens. First, I would like to thank this Canvass Board member for serving in this capacity and for the kind kudos to myself and my election team for our work in the last 12 months. There have been numerous changes to our election processes, And as shared in my previous board updates, more will be instituted before our November 2024 presidential general election. Federal law, Colorado law, and Secretary of State rules govern every aspect of our elections department, and I adhere to the rule of law. If a law oversteps or fails to meet our citizens' needs and concerns, we must collectively work together to change the law. In addition, I am a fact-based decision maker, and many of my decisions are based on objective information. I did receive the 8-page El Paso County Canvas Board Minority Report dated December 5th, 2023 via email. This report provides some excellent suggestions. However, some misinformation must be corrected. First, our assigned Canvas Board member shares in the submitted report that our new ballot printing contractor eliminated the security sleeve and opted for a security pattern, and the security pattern was intended to be sufficiently occlusive to ensure the privacy of the voters' selections. However, Senate Bill 18233 removed the secrecy requirement for mail ballots. El Paso County removed secrecy sleeves from mail ballot packets beginning in 2019 coordinated election to present. And our office includes a security pattern on the inside of the reply envelopes, although this is not a requirement. Also, El Paso County does not use die-cut holes on the reply envelopes, so I have no comment to that. And in your packet, you will see a sample of the envelope provided, and you will see no die-cut holes in the envelope whatsoever. The barcode on the reply envelope is part of the Colorado Secretary of State Rule 7.2.15. This allows print vendors to overlay a two-dimensional barcode for purposes of mailing and insertion. The barcode is not traceable to any individual voter. Second, our assigned Canvas Board member shares in her report that the Colorado Secretary of State awarded $1 million to county clerks to enhance election security. El Paso County did not receive any of these monies related to election security grant. The funds were awarded to counties for items already upgraded in our office, such as cipher locks, alarms, internal security cameras, etc. My office had no qualified needs for these funds. We did install new ballot box surveillance cameras this past year. However, this was not paid for with the mentioned grant monies. These cameras fulfill the requirements stated in the Secretary of State rule, have additional features, and are the most transparent system in the state. These changes mean El Paso County is exceeding this Secretary of State rule. These features include online live viewing and the ability to review past events without needing a core request or hard drives provided by our citizens, which in the past cost them thousands of dollars to collect this information. In addition, per Secretary of State rule, these records must be maintained for 25 months. Our new system can store this footage for 10 years. Also, there were comments regarding the placement of some of these cameras. As an update, 9 of our 39 ballot boxes are located on private property, and the remaining are installed on properties owned by other municipalities, such as school districts, fire districts, library districts, etc. My office requires permission to accept the ballot box and security camera placement. My office does not have the final say in this process. It also includes the property owners. Third, the comments regarding the risk limiting audit and the concerns addressed in the report should be addressed to the Colorado Secretary of State, which oversees the risk limiting audit for all 64 counties. The fourth comment regarded undeliverable ballots. As shared, federal law, Colorado law, and Secretary of State rules govern every aspect of our elections department. Per these laws, an election ballot cannot be rerouted by the United States Postal Service and must be returned to the county clerk, at which time we reach out to the voter to correct their address. As your clerk, I have implemented additional data management processes to verify our voter rolls. These changes have resulted in a 410% increase in our online transaction where a voter updated their mailing address and a 1,446% increase in canceled voter registrations. We have seen a decrease of 41.12% in undeliverable ballots from our November 2022 election. Lastly, the final comment I would like to address is regarding the logic and accuracy test. Colorado Revised Statute 1-7-509C1 states that for all nonpartisan elections, the designated election official or coordinating election official shall select a testing board comprising of at least 2 persons who are registered electors. Although there is no requirement for party ballots, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder's Office appoints a member of each for party ballots, or excuse me, for each from each political party, excuse me. Notice of this public test was posted on Monday, October 2nd. The test was on Tuesday, October 10th. As required by statute, the posting went up at least 7 days before the test. The posting indicated that it was open to the public. This was posted on our public board as well as our public website, and members of the public or the parties were welcome to attend. And as you can see here in the letter, those links are from when I came before you as the board, when I was on KRDO, when I was also on the Richard Randall Show, and I also have the posting of the media release attached to this packet. Again, federal law, Colorado law, and Secretary of State rules govern every aspect of our elections department, and all of us in the clerk's office work extremely hard to ensure we adhere to these laws. Recognizing that not all misinformation is shared with bad intentions is essential. It can be shared because someone is trying to help or see something that they think people should be aware of without first confirming it's real. Regardless of the motivation behind spreading misinformation, it is harmful. If there are any questions or concerns regarding our elections, don't hesitate to contact the trusted source, which is myself or the elections team. So Commissioners, I went ahead and attached for your packet and also for the public record, Senate Bill 18233, which is concerning the technical modifications and provisions of the Election Code of 1992, which was the security sleeves, Colorado Secretary of State Rule 7.7.2, Colorado Revised Statute 1.7-509, the November 7th, 2023 Coordinated Election Notice of Public Logic and Accuracy Test, which was posted on October 2nd, 2023. The November 7th, 2023 Coordinated Election Notice of Public Logic and Accuracy Test media release, which was dated October 9th. And also a copy of the El Paso County Canvass Board Minority Report dated December 5th, 2023, and also provided a sample of the envelope that is mailed back, and it shows no holes. So that is my explanation of some of the misunderstandings. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for Mr. Schleicher? Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your providing the act, and I'll go through it in detail in the near future here. But perhaps you could enlighten me. I've got 2 questions. The first one is regarding 18233. When this was placed in the legislation, somebody must have said the reason for removing the security sleeve. So what was the intent of the law? Why were they removing the security sleeve?
So, Commissioner, that is a great question. There was 2 reasons for removing the security sleeve. First and foremost was the cost, and the second was the time it took to process those ballots. Now, however, after speaking with my elections director, it does not mean El Paso County cannot have the discussion and go back to the security sleeve, which we're having those discussions. But when we're, when it's shared to the public that it was our vendor that made the decision to do that, that is absolutely incorrect.
Yes, yeah.
This has been done since 2018.
Great, I appreciate that. And with regard to that particular practice, and then also, let's see, there was another one that you mentioned. Stand by just a moment. And that was the logic and accuracy test for having one member from each party, or at least, 2 people not being from the same party, let's say, using it that way. That certainly seems like good practice to me. Is that generally practice across the state, or are there counties that, because they adhere to one, that they have a preponderance of one party or another, that they tend to select both from that party?
In most counties, they will sit there, have a representative from the Democrat Party, the Republican Party, then the third person is the elected clerk and recorder. And there's also witnesses in the room as well that are overseeing the whole entire process. So you have a panel canvas board, which again is a member of the Republican Party, Democrat Party, and myself, and most counties adhere to that.
Great. And then one last question, and I appreciate this. I appreciate the work that you and your team are doing on making sure that we've got good, solid elections here in El Paso County. And I appreciate the additional efforts you're taking above and beyond statutory requirements to verify voter rolls. I'm just wondering, there's a Clerk and Recorders Association. Is it recommended as a practice to go past statutory requirements to ensure verification of voter rolls? Because, I think the numbers of a number of voters that have either moved away or passed away or whatever, I think are pretty small here in El Paso because we've been working on this for a long time. But there could be other counties where they've not been practicing that much, and it just seems like it's a wise thing to do across the state. So are there other clerks doing a lot of work in this effort trying to reduce this challenge, or is the association recommending that, providing training or something for clerks to do that?
So, Commissioner, absolutely. I went and gave a presentation to the executive board of the CCCA, and many of the clerks were wondering why I took the steps that I did. So thus far, I'm the only clerk in the state of Colorado that has taken the extra steps and running the voter rolls against Experian data. However, they are intrigued. In addition to that is I'm working with some legislators because, to be honest, Castilla County, Baca County, our smaller counties don't have the budget that El Paso County Clerk and Recorder's Office has. And it does cost money to go ahead and do that, which I feel should actually be backfilled by the Secretary of State's office, where all 64 county clerks do the same. They are very interested in doing it. They see the results that we are seeing. And I am going to be giving another presentation here at the Clerks Winter Conference this next week. So hopefully we get everybody on board, but I've seen extremely positive results with just doing one query, and we will be doing another query of the voter rolls this spring prior to our 2024 presidential election, the general election.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Thank you. Great questions. Any further questions? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question, you said, so the decision in 2018, it wasn't you. The sleeves cost extra money. So did we actually save money from using the sleeves and then not ordering the sleeves? Again, it's before you, but I want to make sure that any savings went back to us and that the vendor didn't just get to keep the difference. So could you look into that for me? Thank you.
So Commissioner, I do not have that information right here. I can go back and see what the cost savings was at, if there was any return on investment. However, I will share with you, you cannot put a dollar amount on our elections. So that is the reason why we're having the discussions right now, if we should go back, if the community wants the security sleeve back. Although as you can see in the envelope, there is a security print on there, but I think many in our community feel going back to the security sleeve is a good idea, and I'm researching that now. But I will get that return on investment to you.
Are there any further questions?
And Madam Chair, one last thing I want to share is we are all geared up. We're going back into election season again. We are mailing out our overseas military, overseas citizen ballots for the 2024 presidential primary this Friday. So we are starting right back up, and we have the ballots going out here 2 weeks later to all the citizens of El Paso County. So I'll be coming back down to give you all a weekly update of how the primary election here in El Paso County is going.
Thank you. And actually, on that note, is there a bit of a PSA you would like to do about something printed on those ballots and how that will be handled internally in your office? The presidential primary with the removal.
Yeah, in fact, we've had several races that have withdrawn from the presidential, election. We have yet to receive anything from the Secretary of State's office sharing, hey, they have been removed, so their campaigns have yet to file that paperwork with the Secretary of State's office. But what we're going to be doing is providing updated sample ballots. So I will be bringing ballots here that will show the actual races that are still in contention. But those ballots will be changing probably daily. And as we know, we had another candidate drop out last night from a race. And so we'll have that on our website, and we'll also have it hanging up in our VSPCs as well. So thank you, Madam Chair, for reminding me of that.
Thank you for going through the extra step to make sure the public has kind of the most updated ballot in the form of the sample ballots, because obviously those ballots were already printed prior to. So, okay, any further questions?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Williams, are you ready for Commissioner comments?
I don't have any this morning, except to say I was in at 2 a.m. last night by the time I got to bed, so I'm pretty quiet in the morning when I don't get enough sleep. Thanks.
Airline travel is not fun these days. Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So tomorrow I'll be participating in the State Board of Health meeting and continuing on through the course of the week. I'll be going to the Carnegie Library groundbreaking, which is in Manitou Springs. That will be on Friday the 19th. That is the overhaul of that library, which was really suffering from being pretty dated. And also had some pretty serious ADA concerns. That is essentially funded and is really going to be helpful for the community there. The other interesting thing is it's immediately across the street from an elementary school. So the elementary school had been relying on that Carnegie Library to be the library for the school, and then the library got closed. So the elementary school's library is now several blocks away at the Manitou Arts Center, not an optimal kind of thing. But the fact that we've got a groundbreaking going this week, it means the reconstruction work is ongoing. And I want to thank my fellow commissioners for being supportive of the repair and overhaul of this library. So thank you to all of you for that. And then Monday next week, a retirement board meeting, I believe, will be in the morning. Then we have a workforce consortium board at 12:30 on that Monday. And then we'll be back to the Board of County Commissioners meeting next Tuesday. And then the one last comment that I want to make, I appreciate Mr. Schleicher coming here, our clerk and recorder, and talking about these issues. But I think we've got one other really overriding issue that we have all mentioned this in this on this dais before, but our current Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, just continues to be, I think, just wrong and inappropriate. If she's running any election, presidential election or any other state election, she needs to stay out of criticizing any of the candidates. That is just absolutely wrong. And I would just make the point that I would encourage anybody in the state to send her letters or give her a call and ask her to cut it out. And I make the point also, if you were a Democrat and she were walking around the state saying Trump is the only valid presidential candidate, and then running the primary here, and then the presidential election in the fall, and was running around saying that, you can imagine how Democrats would be really uncomfortable with that and would maybe be second guessing whether the Secretary of State is going to run a free and fair election or not. So it doesn't make any difference who the candidate is. The Secretary of State needs to stay out of criticizing any of the candidates that's on that ballot. Please, I implore her to do that, and I ask citizens to communicate with her and ask her to stop. Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comments from Commissioner Vanderwerf. I mentioned that last week. I think Ms. Griswold with her continued partisanship and bias at the national level. It's an embarrassment to Colorado, and I strongly encourage the Colorado County Clerks Association Executive Board to consider a letter sanctioning Ms. Griswold for her actions and bias and partisanship nationally. Thank you. Sorry, and we're just one other one. Wanted to say, despite the cold yesterday, I was very proud to be a representative for El Paso County and myself over at the MLK All People's Breakfast yesterday morning. Thank you.
Commissioner Geithner.
Good morning. A couple of things that are going on this week include a community corrections meeting, be participating in a legislative briefing for CCI on Friday. As we all know, the legislative session has kicked off, though they are not in session today, as I found out, due to the extreme cold. But I wanted to, so in addition to constituent and organization meetings that I have this week, still a busy week on that front, but there are a couple of items that I wanted to mention. One is there's been a lot of talk and consideration both in the media and in the public around the continued border crisis and the impact to Colorado specifically. I just wanted to publicly state again, and this board has publicly stated in the past, and so I will speak for myself here, but recognizing the stance this board has taken in the past that the crisis is one of many cities' own making, including Denver, who labeled themselves a sanctuary city. And when they are being truly inundated with folks crossing the border and coming to their city, they cannot handle the capacity. The mayor of Denver recently just asked the city council to look for $180 million in cuts to their budget in order to be able to fund the continuing needs of this huge number of individuals that are coming to their city, and they just do not have the resources to take good care of. If you notice that the governor of our state asked the military to get involved with helping to make sure people stayed warm during this cold snap, which of course was, I think we all know was pretty cold. But at the same point, I think we have to look at why that is. And if it is because we have considerable people unhoused because of the border crisis, we really have to take a look at what we're doing and how we're spending our resources in our state. When we talk about not being able to fund education, we have to look at priorities, and that continues to be a concern to me, that we are not prioritizing the kind of public safety, the kind of education needs that we have in the state of Colorado, because we are spending so much money on dealing with this border crisis, which is quite frankly a failure of our federal administration. So I want to make it clear that I in no way support us being a sanctuary city, and I in no way support us taking in illegal immigrants from the border and creating that kind of a situation here in El Paso County. I also wanted to bring up, as we were in this legislative cycle, we are starting to hear the rumors about all kinds of bills that are coming through. There's one that is of particular concern to me. It is a bill related to prohibiting concealed carry in many different spaces. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and so this is concerning to me for many reasons. And one of them very directly is it has the potential to impact this county, which is some of the safe spaces, we'll say, quoted in the bill, include local government buildings. It would mean that it takes away our ability to make that decision locally. So a infringement on our local control, but just there's so many places named parks, sidewalks. If there's a demonstration, you can't be on the sidewalk. Well, what do you do when you're walking by that sidewalk? Just so many ways that concealed carry permit holders who are law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment rights could be caught up, and quite frankly, the law could be weaponized against them. I think we're seeing quite enough lawfare in our nation right now, and I am concerned about this being another method of doing that, again, in addition to that local control concern. I also happen to know that we have quite a few schools in El Paso County who utilize programs that arm staff, administration, other folks on campus through concealed carry training programs. And this would take away the ability for our schools in many cases to protect their students in the way that they have been doing so over the last several years. So this continues to be a very big concern for me. In addition to the fact that we've seen laws like this struck down around the nation, it's concerning to me that our lawmakers here continue to ignore the courts, continue to ignore the constitutional rights of citizens, and are looking to pass this bill. At the end of the day, I do believe if it's passed, the courts will still strike it down, but the amount of money that is required to fight that in the court system, I think that's purposeful. I think the complete ignoring of the rule of law and the constitutional rights of citizens is unacceptable, regardless of whether we believe a future court will strike that down. So just wanted to bring that to the forefront. It is very directly related to our operations here and what we would be thrust into. And I think citizens need to know what is being talked about right now in our Capitol. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Geithner. And for those of you who may not be aware of how this board interacts with both our federal and our state level, just last week at our organizational meeting, we did pass our liaison assignments. And so what that involves is the five of us getting together and discussing really who has who is able to interact most closely with our legislators. And so this year, Commissioner Geithner is our state legislative liaison. Commissioner Vanderwerf is our federal legislative liaison. And what that really involves is all five of us are making decisions throughout the legislative season, but that each of those commissioners is really in charge of knowing the nitty gritty and exactly what's coming down really oftentimes before we see a formal bill. So that helps us be ready to speak out for our citizens here. And both of them do an excellent job of that. They're both heading into a very, very busy season of doing that. And as Commissioner Geithner mentioned, and I mentioned last week as well, the state legislature did get underway last week. They are on a break today. And, you know, I was thinking about when I saw the notice that the state legislature would not be meeting today, I was thinking about really the vastness of this state, the difficulties of having all those legislators in person in Denver at our state capitol, regardless of which corner of the state that they're coming from. So hopefully everybody can get where they need to, and the legislature will be back underway tomorrow. But, you know, I think overall we have some local legislators that do a really great job of keeping El Paso County citizens in mind. So briefly on my calendar this week, after this meeting, we do have quite a jam-packed informal meeting as well, including a presentation from the Chamber of Commerce. And then I have a lot of other internal meetings going on this week, and I will also be at the Carnegie Library opening and Pikes Peak Workforce Center Consortium Board on Monday morning. With that, Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the great updates of all my colleagues, and especially, Madam Chair, some of the comments that you made. And in keeping with Commissioner Geithner doing a lot of the state level and I'm doing a lot of the federal level, maybe, and since we were talking about Second Amendment rights, I just thought I would also mention, at least get it into public record, that on January 13, a federal judge in Florida ruled that the U.S. law that bars people from possessing firearms in post offices is also unconstitutional. And that judge cited the U.S. Supreme Court ruling from 2022 that modified legal interpretations of what the Second Amendment actually says, going back to the original intent of the Second Amendment, which I think is exceptionally valuable. Now, this battle will continue throughout the country, but right now we've got a federal judge saying that you can carry guns into post offices, and I imagine we'll see some battles about that around the country. but it is one of these other practical aspects. If you are a concealed carry permit owner, let's say, for example, and you need to go into a post office to buy some stamps, you would have to, prior to this being struck down, you'd have to leave your gun in your car and go in there. And I just think that's wrong. I mean, a lot of people will forget that and then inadvertently find out that they're breaking the law. So you should be able to carry a gun into a post office and into other locations. So the battle does rage on Second Amendment, and I thought maybe it would be important to mention that here. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other countywide elected officials online? Okay, item number 7.
Item number 7 is community service organization reports, and there are none.
Item number 8.
Item number 8 is public comment on items not scheduled on the agenda. This is the public's opportunity to speak on an item that is not scheduled on today's agenda. And Madam Chair, I'm unaware of anyone signing in ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on any item not on today's agenda? In the audience? Okay, online? Hearing none. Item number 9.
Item number 9 is the called up consent calendar, and there are no items called up today.
Item number 10.
Item number 10 is the resolution appointing a director to fill a vacancy on the Board of Directors of the Cherokee Metropolitan District, Kenneth Hodges, County Attorney.
Good morning,
Mr.
Madam
Hodges.
Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Kenny Hodges, County Attorney. For a real quick bit of background, there's a statutory process in place for filling a vacancy on a Metropolitan District Board. That would require a 60-day vacancy and the board of the Metropolitan District being unable to fill that vacancy. In that scenario, the Board of County Commissioners could provide written notice for up to 30 days and then follow through and appoint that vacancy. Applied here for Cherokee Metro District. Staff was notified of a vacancy in place that's been in place since October 6th when Cherokee board member Dan Wall resigned. Mr. Wall had been elected to a 4-year term at the May 2nd, 2023 Metro District election. Any appointee, if someone were appointed today, would serve for the remainder of Mr. Wall's term. We actually sent notice from my office to the Metro District Board on December 12th, 2023. There's a resolution before you that contains blank lines for an appointee. Backup material also contains a list of interested or potentially interested candidates and options for the Board of County Commissioners consideration. My staff has confirmed eligibility and interest for electors residing in the district in the following: Jeremy Atkinson, Jan Cedarberg, Kim Wilson, and Dennis Daniels. So those, I believe, would be your realistic choices today. Also in the board's backup materials are the May 2nd, 2023 election results from the Metro District elections. Any questions I can answer?
Mr. Hodges, can I have you repeat those names, please?
Absolutely. I went through them pretty quickly. Jeremy Atkinson, Jan Cedarberg, Kim Wilson, Dennis Daniels.
Commissioner Geiner.
I was going to ask if we could bring up that from the backup material and display it. Maybe our folks could do that for us with the results of the May 2nd election.
So in the backup materials, that would be the third PDF. Okay. Are there any other initial questions for Mr. Hodges from the board? I can just, do you have it printed?
Madam Chair, I have a printed copy here if that's easier.
Let's just utilize the overhead if we can, please. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hodges, has the county done this in the past, and has there been a set standard that the county commissioners have used before in filling a seat?
Thank you, sir. Yes, the county has done this in the past. However, the scenario under which it was conducted was a little bit different. In the past, what's happened is that the attorney or director from a district would reach out to our office, to Lori Seago from my office, and it was generally a fairly rote process where we request that the county appoint X person as our appointee. What we have not had in my experience is a number of folks who are competing for the position.
All right, so the other previous examples had a recommended person for us to approve.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I believe what is being requested to be displayed is perhaps page 2 of this with the total votes cast for each of those divided out. There you go. Thank you. Is that, Commissioner Geithner, what you were looking for?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the process? Commissioner Geithner?
I don't have any additional questions about the process at this point. I'm assuming we may have some public comment on this item, and so I will have some additional questions, but I think I will kind of just say I want to reserve the right here to ask some additional questions as we go forward about how we got to this situation, perhaps from the district manager, and to understand kind of how we got to this spot, what's been happening up to this point, and whether resolution is possible through the board.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, that is a great segue. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. I think we will now open up this item for public comment. We will allow 3 minutes each. That's customary for this board. And we would specifically welcome public comment from any members of the audience who seek to fill this vacancy, and then any other public comment in support of or against any of the proposed appointees. Please introduce yourself, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Good morning. My name is Kim Wilson. I'm a resident of Cherokee Metropolitan District for over 20 years. I've submitted a letter of interest with much of my expertise, and I believe you all have that in your packet today. I would request that you take a look at my experience. I believe I am highly qualified for the position. I recently retired from Department of Defense as a budget analyst. I have 35 years federal government experience, 22 with finance, 10 with supply, and 3 with postal. I have a U.S. graduate certificate in financial management. I also received a certificate from the Undersecretary of Defense for Financial Management Level 2, which is required. While serving in finance, I managed 10 bases statewide overseas with over $50 million in funding. I headed multiple civil engineering functions, major government contracts, and daily functions. I was a GS-11 with 10 plus civilians and 10 plus commanders that I worked with on a daily basis. I facilitated a large water main break in Kayana Point, Hawaii, that resulted in the ongoing consultation on a 2-year, $3 million project where I met with and coordinated several items and subject matter experts, engineers, and distribution to ensure that all was completed properly while ensuring the local customers continued to have their water needs met. I attended weekly meetings. I facilitated monthly meetings, briefing at the highest level of generals and below. I also made Civilian of the Year at the base level, squadron level, base level, and MATCOM level. I have managed and developed dozens of contracts totaling millions of dollars. As a recent retiree of DOD, my schedule is flexible. My expertise in finance and large contracts makes me a great fit for the vacancy, as I believe there is a lack of experience on the board. The district is in our community, and I would be honored to contribute my experiences, expertise, and knowledge as part of Cherokee, and will work cooperatively with the district board members and management to ensure the customers continue to receive great representation as we strive to improve the customer's experience for all. Thank you for your consideration. Do you have any questions of me today?
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I do just have one. Did you run for this office previously?
No, ma'am.
And can you tell me why you didn't run previously?
I just recently retired, so there was no availability. When I was an RA, I was on the phone at midnight doing calls overseas. so
Okay, thank you.
That wasn't in my calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jeremy Atkinson, and I stand before you once again as one of the candidates for the vacant seat for the Cherokee Metro Board. I've attended the last 2 county commissioner meetings, delivering messages of concern on behalf of the voters of this district. It's been 8 short months since the most recent election was held, in which the voters profoundly removed 2 sitting members and replaced them with new voices. This came on the heels of the 2022 election, where another sitting member was replaced with someone new, the current president of the board. In a span of 13 short months, 3 of the 5 board members were removed by the voters in one clear voice, saying loudly, "Enough is enough." After the 2022 election, our rates were raised by 12% by those who touted to keep our rates low. Shortly after that, they proposed spending $70,000 on a sign that no one asked for. After removing 2 of them 8 months ago, including the one who proposed the new sign, the 2 remaining demanded an additional 6% increase on our bills for the simple reason they worked hard on the budget. That's simply not a good enough reason to raise our rates when the district was in the black across the board. An 18% increase in our rates in 12 months is an awful lot for us to absorb into our personal budgets when we know the incoming water needs to be cleaned up and we will have to pay for yet another new facility to treat the PFAS problem recently discovered. I've been attending the meetings at Cherokee since the grand opening of the $42 million wastewater facility last year that was not designed to clean up the incoming water for the customers. I've spoken with the general manager several times, as well as most of the board members. I understand the frustrations the customers are experiencing because, unlike the general manager, I'm one of them. I live in the Cherokee district. I drink, cook with, and bathe in the Cherokee water. I know that despite the claim that it's pristine, compliant is a more accurate word. I'm willing to be the voice of our customers. I'm willing to have those difficult discussions with both the board and the voters. I'm willing to do the work to change Cherokee's reputation for the better. I hear the people loudly because there are many of them and I care about them. That's why I'm here again, asking that you make the right choice in filling the vacant seat. I'm asking that I be appointed to the empty seat, that I may continue to do the work Dan began before his health forced him to resign. I believe I am the voice to move Cherokee forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this candidate? Commissioner Geithner?
Yes, thank you. So I'll ask the same question. Did you run in the last election?
It's a great question. Thank you, Ms. Geithner. No, I did not. I did not become aware as a 3-year resident and owner in Cherokee. I did not even become aware that there were elections because I've never received a ballot for the Cherokee board. I've never been made aware of the Cherokee elections until this past one in May. How did I come to know about it? Next door. I found out it's very difficult to get information on those elections because the information that is provided the day of on the sign outside of Cherokee, much like the meeting they're having tonight has yet, as I'm aware, to be notified on that board. It wasn't up there yesterday. Election ballots are not mailed out. You have to come in on a specified date between specified hours, or you can go through the challenging process of trying to get on their permanent absentee ballot list, which is only available, that application is only available for a limited time just prior to whatever election. That, again, is not an application that's currently available, not on their website, not in their office, not through any possible DEO. They do not make it clearly available. So
Okay,
when
I just
became
want
available-
to, just because, I want to be fair to everyone, and
sure.
so rather than just give you additional time to answer the question, it sounds like, I'm going to summarize here and say, your reason for not having run previously is because you were unaware of the election. Is that
Correct,
accurate? Okay,
correct.
thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any others wishing to speak? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Marie Kinney, and I currently serve on the board at Cherokee as president, and I truly appreciate you doing this. I did submit a written statement, so I just won't read the entire thing. That does outline our process when we were trying to fill the vacancy. I do want to speak to specifically, Dennis Daniels was on the board in 2022 when I was, and there was quite a contingency of voters who wanted to have him recalled. They cited behavior, votes on the board, that sort of thing. They were quite adamant, and a lot of those justifications I actually agreed with. However, I said I would not support a recall. I suggested they beat him at the ballot box. If they're unhappy, they need to find other candidates, support them, beat them at the ballot box, and make the election process work. They did that. They beat him quite resoundingly. As you can see by the numbers, they simply voted him out of office. It is not uncommon to have vacancies in Title 32 districts. It's quite often very difficult to fill them because not very many people want them. As you see, that is not the case in Cherokee. We have some people with some pretty great qualifications. I would ask you to respect the voters at Cherokee and not appoint Dennis Daniels, as he was simply voted out of office very recently. I know that from watching you, you're a reasonable panel, and I do not believe you would knowingly appoint someone to our board to represent the very voters who just voted him out of office. I would suggest and hope that you appoint Jeremy Atkinson or Kim Wilson. I think both are fine candidates. I think they both have great skill sets that can be of great value to the board and to the district, which is our community. I certainly would welcome any questions you might have of me. And again, we may have gotten here unconventionally, but we're here and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. Since you are a current member of the board,
Yes.
I'm going to ask for, as brief as we can have here in this situation. When you started, you said, thank you for taking this up. So I assume that you are in favor of this board selecting someone to fill this vacancy. So just help me understand why the board has not been able to fill this vacancy from your perspective, please.
I can do it really fast, I promise. We did attempt to address this vacancy. The board asked for letters of interest from anyone in the community who was interested. And we got them. We got quite a few. We got some very interesting ones. People did submit letters of interest. They came to our meeting. They addressed the board, which is very scary for some people. So I really respected that. And they all had earnest hopes of getting the appointment. But at that meeting, 2 of our board members stated they would vote for no one other than Dennis Daniels, and they would not consider or entertain anyone else. In contrast, myself and another board member, Tracy Ferguson, we voted for virtually any of the others. I am sorry to say that what happened as a result of that, of course, left us with a 2-2, on everything, which has not been the case on other issues we voted on. We voted on the 2024 budget, passed that 3-1. And 68% of the time with a 4-member panel, we have voted unanimously 68% of the time on business items. But this was their line in the sand. I think there's personal relationships. They've known each other a long time and so forth. But they would not vote for anyone other than Dennis Daniels, who was just voted out of office. And so, unfortunately, after that meeting, those people who had applied, I think, left feeling very discouraged, perhaps a little bit duped, because they were asked to do this and they weren't even being considered. That's how we got here.
Any further questions?
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Please introduce yourself.
Sorry, Renee Sintis. First of all, Meridian and Rex, woohoo! I got to tell you that all the time because I'm so happy. I want to thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, for suggesting I put a core request in last week. I didn't even think about that. Between communications between Cherokee and the county, I did fill one out last week, and I got an email confirming my request. I haven't received it yet, but I know that there's so much time that it takes. I'm hoping I'll get that any day now. I did become very concerned last week when it was explained to us by some of you that the communication is not subject to ex parte, and that communication not only has been going on, but that it would continue, even though we'd previously been told otherwise. We have come to you publicly in the hopes that you would encourage them to do the same rather than working in the shadows. Despite being told by multiple citizens that the fix is in, I'm still choosing to believe that the 5 of you prefer to listen to the citizens of the district over promises with friends who are not even voters of the district, much less customers. The district has many serious issues facing it, and the citizens want a board that will work to solve the issues and not rubber stamp the same old doctrines that have yet to address the customers' concerns. The remaining 3 candidates, not including the obvious one trying to outmaneuver the voters, are all qualified to achieve this goal, in my opinion. Please do the right thing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others wishing to speak? Please come forward and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tracy Ferguson. I am the Secretary and Treasurer of the Cherokee Metro Board of Directors. I feel the Cherokee Metro Water Board of Directors needs representation that is objective to serve the customers. There are currently 2 new members from the previous 3. One newly elected member, as you've heard, resigned in October 2023 due to health reasons, which is why we are here today, and have been in discussion with the Board of County Commissioners. A fresh perspective is needed to ask questions and provide accountability. While I feel there are many individuals qualified to serve on the board of those that submitted their letters of interest, that fresh perspective would come from either Kim Wilson or Jeremy Atkinson. Both have shown an interest in serving on the board, their experience in their respective professions would be an added improvement. There would be a negative impression in appointing a past board member who was not reelected in May 2023, in which a petition with over 600 signatures has been circulating stating such. Dennis Daniels, who submitted his letter of intent, not interest, but his letter of intent, noted in his campaign flyer and submittal letter that he was successful in keeping past board members off of the board. I will be forthright here, so there is no misunderstanding. We do not want Dennis Daniels back on the board. The disruption of the last 7 months needs to stop, and we need to move forward with the operations of the board in the district. I know this is a difficult decision for you all, as the general manager at Cherokee, Amy Lathan, is a former county commissioner and that friendships exist. But this goes beyond friendship. The board doesn't appear to be operating as an entity of oversight, but instead with two current members being close to the general manager and attending personal events, weddings, and et cetera. This creates a conflict of interest, in my opinion, and lacks objectivity. A longstanding member of the board even apologized to the general manager after the December meeting, stating that they were sorry that the budget that was passed did not include a rate increase. But they were sure when Dennis was back on the board in January, it would be addressed again and it would be approved. I'm sure the customers were not disappointed in not having a rate increase. Therefore, I just say, we need to restore the board's reputation, welcome customer insight and discussion, and have it once again become an advocate for the customers of the district. We need to get this house in order. It's a little messy right now. Thank you. Do you have any questions of me?
We have any questions?
I'm just going to ask the same question since you are on the board. If you have anything to add to the explanation of how we got here, I think that what you said mostly covered that, but I'll just ask if you have anything additional in the same manner that I did with Michelle.
No, I think it was very well explained by Michelle.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this may be for you or might be for the chair of the board, but I mean, every board has bylaws and so forth, and usually there's a section for positions that vacate, and then there's a process that's supposed to be followed in order to fill that vacated position. So I just want to ask the question, what do the bylaws say today? And was there, an honest attempt to try to comply with them, or was it complied with? Or the reason why I ask is sometimes on other boards that I've participated in, the bylaws are not clear, and then that actually produces some of the controversy. So I just wanted to ask the question, where are we with regard to the bylaws, and are you all following those procedures?
Those bylaws were suspended at, I believe it was the June meeting, because they were not favorable to the district. So we suspended the bylaws. So right now we don't have current bylaws in place.
Yeah.
Please come to the microphone.
Tracy is correct on that. They were suspended. There was a lot of draconian things that had gotten in them regarding how many people from the public could sit in chairs and things like that. But that said, we are governed by statute, and statute requires that the board appoint a vacancy, and if they don't, it goes to the county commissioners. And where we got stuck was that we have the other two board members that will not even consider anyone else but the man that was recently voted out of office. No justification, no discussion, that or nothing. That's how we got here.
Thank you. I appreciate the insights. Can I presume that there will be efforts in the future about reestablishment of bylaws? I just have to say that having no bylaws, I just have to imagine, does make it harder.
I don't know that it does, because when it comes to an issue like this, votes are votes. And we did, I thought, a very good job of asking the public if anyone is interested. And in sharp contrast to many Title 32 districts, as I'm sure you know, they'll have vacancies on boards for sometimes a year because they can't find anybody who's even willing to be on a board. We had a lot of interest from the community, which I thought was really exciting. And we had some really good, highly qualified people. We tried to discuss that in open session, but the other two board members were not interested in debating, discussing anyone else's presentations or anything of the sort, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't sure if there was anybody else going to speak. I was just wondering if there was any of the other 2 current board members or any of the other 2 candidates here that may wanted to speak.
No, they are not present.
And there's no one online? Okay, thank you. Are there any others who would like to speak on this item? Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Lathan. I'm the General Manager of Cherokee Metropolitan District Board of the district, and I just wanted to speak to the water quality issues that were brought up because that's such an important issue for our customers. Unfortunately, with all that's been going on in the last several months, there's been a lot of misinformation put out to our customers. There have been flyers put out to our customers talking about water quality concerns. And when you go to the website, the change.org's website where the petition resides, it's all about this vacancy. That's fine. That's what is, the approach that's been taken. I just want to address the water quality. We do have very pristine groundwater that we deliver to our customers. We serve over 40,000 customers in El Paso County between the water services and the wastewater services, and that includes Schriever Space Force Base. As you know very well, we are working regionally on the Loop project with the incredible assets that this district has developed over decades and will operate into the future. It is important for our customers to know that their water is safe, that they can continue to drink their water as we work through the reduction of the PFAS standards that the EPA and state are considering, which is what has brought that to the forefront. With that being said, we are building a water treatment facility so that we can remove what manufacturers are putting into the water. That is the biggest water quality issue that we have facing us right now, and we will meet that issue head on with this water treatment facility. Our wastewater treatment upgrades, some of you have been there to see those upgrades, those significant reverse osmosis technologies are treating the water. It's an extraordinary technology, and that is going to help take us into the future as well, both with water quantity and water quality. And I just want to make sure that what has been very difficult for our board to navigate with the differences that they have had is that our customers understand that the water is extremely high quality, that some of the information that's been put out has been incorrect, that we have helped correct that information, and we just want you to be aware that it is. And if you ever have any questions about water quality, please, please let me know. We will get you whatever information you need because you serve the customers that we serve as well. So with that being said, we will work with whomever is on this board as we always do as staff. We hope that we can get back to the business of running a water and wastewater district because it has been pretty rough lately, and we just want to work together with everyone. So we look forward to whomever comes onto the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. I'm sorry to make you walk all the way back down here, but I do actually. Took me a minute to formulate some questions that I wanted to ask. So I'll give you a minute to get down here. But there have been a couple of things that were mentioned that I'm wondering if you could speak to from your perspective. One is there were comments made about the election itself and the process. Can you just speak to whether or not, from your experience and what you have seen, if the district has been compliant with election law?
Our district has been completely, wholly, 100% compliant with election law. And that, as our district was formed before January 1st of 2000, therefore, this board is able to choose either a polling location or an all-mail ballot polling election. And of course, an all-mail ballot election is pretty expensive, and for a small district like us, and we're small but mighty, that has major ramifications, tens of thousands of dollars different. And so the board has, since I've been here, chosen polling place elections. With that, we abide by all special district association requirements for notice. It is noticed, elections are noticed in billing statements, elections are noticed on the website, and at any time during the prescribed time frame prescribed to special districts, anyone can either get what's still referred to as an absentee ballot in the mail if they choose to, and then we maintain that list in perpetuity, or they can come in and vote in the polling location. But yes, we adhere to everything, and we've even had outside legal counsel review that.
Okay, and then just as a follow-up, if that's okay.
I also have a follow-up on that subject before
Okay,
you would move to another one.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead then?
So it looks like in the last election, roughly 1,221 votes were cast. Can you give us an idea of what the turnout is and whether that was a historical perspective on that as well? Like, was it a higher turnout? Was it slightly lower? Was it exactly what it's been since the district was formed? Just kind of an idea of a trend on turnout and involvement in the election.
I think the polling place turnout was the same as it always has been. What we saw in this election was a higher turnout in those absentee ballots. There was a strong campaign using absentee ballot request forms, that some of which were pre-filled, and then people would just sign them and turn them in, and then we mailed them a ballot. So that's certainly fine. That's part of a campaign effort, and that increased turnout. On that side, I think our polling numbers were about the same, but I would have to go back and look at those. So from my experience in my time there, the polling place was very similar, but this election had a higher turnout in those absentee ballots.
Thank you. We'll let Commissioner Geithner finish up with her question and then move on to Commissioner Williams.
If Commissioner Williams' question is related to the election topic, I would defer to keep it clean here.
I'm still on the election topic, so I'm going to test your knowledge here. It's my understanding that only property owners can vote in a special district election. Do you know how many voters you have?
We have in the neighborhood, what you are testing me, in the neighborhood of 17,000 eligible electors. So
Okay.
you can either be a resident or a property owner.
Ooh, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to a bit of a different topic. There have been some talk around financials and the state of the district. Can you just speak to maybe the health of the district right now? Are there financial issues? What might some of these references be to, and what is the current state of the district?
Certainly. Staff did ask for a small rate increase for the 2024 budget to address just continued increased costs in our operational and maintenance budget. As you all know, O&M budgets, inflation hits everybody. So the cost of our chemicals, chlorine, dioxide, different things that we use to treat water and wastewater, the cost of all of the commodities that we use, the cost of personnel, as you well know, with their benefits packages, salaries, trying to be competitive, especially with CSU out there. We try to be competitive with our professional water and wastewater operators. So all of our O&M costs have gone up, and so there was a request for a small O&M increase because we do like to keep our budget. We don't at a 30% surplus. That is for our cash reserve, our annual cash reserve, operating cash reserve. We do not have any taxes. We operate strictly on rates and fees at Cherokee. So there is not a single tax that this district taxes anyone. So as we look at those budgets every single year, up until last year, we had not asked for a single rate increase. I went in with our team and we changed the structure of the district in terms of O&M and saved a tremendous amount of money over really the 3.5 years preceding that. And then of course all those costs come forward. The district is in very, very good financial health. The bonds that we sold for the total dissolved solids reverse osmosis project. It was a spectacular sale. We were highly rated. We are very, very stable district, but we still have O&M costs that continue to increase. And so we did ask for a small rate increase. It was about an average of $2 per month per resident. The board said no to that. That is their prerogative. I believe the comment that was mentioned, there was another member that wanted to vote for that because they recognize that costs keep going up. That's entirely up to the board. We simply made that recommendation. We will be in the black. We will simply not have as much of a cash reserve for 2024.
Commissioner Geithner. And then I understand that we do have someone online that was wishing to speak during public comment. So if we can get them queued up, but we will finish this line of questioning with Ms. Lathan.
So just want to clarify, because obviously not all special districts are the same. So for example, I know in my special district, there is a tax levied. So you're saying that, because we've had this huge conversation around property tax here, so I want to just make sure this is clear. So you're completely rate funded, so meaning this whole property tax conversation, you guys did not receive a windfall of with the assessment rates going up because you don't receive any property taxes at all, completely based on that water rate.
That is correct. And we do anticipate new costs that we did not anticipate roughly 4 months ago with having to build a water treatment facility now that the EPA and the state have lowered those standards on those PFA compounds. With that in mind, we're looking at 25 to 30 million in new capital that we had not previously anticipated, in addition to all of our other long-term capital planning. We will work through all of that as we go along, but again, I was strictly speaking of O&M previously, and that's what the staff had recommended to the board.
Commissioner Geithner.
Okay, so on the water quality issue and some of the things that were brought up, and again, I'm bringing these up, and I'll be transparent here that I do want to follow the will of the voters, and we can all disagree, as we sometimes hear reasonable people can disagree about what that means. But in an election scenario where someone was voted for and we could make the characterization they were voted out, but they are the only ones that the public has voted on and weighed in on. Again, to be very transparent, I am generally in favor of looking at that second highest vote getter, and that is a very standard process I think a lot of people use on a lot of boards because it is the voters weighing in. Otherwise, I don't have any idea how the voters feel outside of that. But in an extenuating circumstance where there was some real concern, and I'm trying to take that into account from what people are bringing forward. That's why my line of questioning is around, are there some major concerns that maybe we should take into account in that? And so on the question of the water quality, on the PFAS, the PFOA, now I'm somewhat familiar with this issue, but can you walk us through how this kind of came to be? And I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth here. So my understanding briefly is that this is a CDPHE. There was maybe a voluntary program and that they were looking at lowering limits significantly lower. So could you just kind of give us the technical details and help us understand what that whole piece is about in terms of quality?
Absolutely. Cherokee Metropolitan District does not have, there's no influence of a flight line like you might be familiar with PFAS chemicals from Peterson Air Force Base, for example, into our water supply. But we have tested for these compounds in the past and they've been non-detect. Last year, CDPHE offered a voluntary program to water providers all around the state to engage in voluntary testing of water sources that CDPHE would administer. And so we volunteered to let them do that. These tests are very expensive. They take quite a lot of time. They are very specific protocols for collecting the samples themselves. And so we volunteered for that. Those tests came up that there were some detects out of some of our areas, some of the places where the water was blended and came into our system. The PFAS issue is not a regulated issue as yet. If we had been having this conversation about PFAS about 2 years ago, we would be talking about not having any detections over 70 parts per trillion. Now the EPA is looking to lower, well, CDPHE is looking to lower that to 4 parts per trillion. And the interim health advisory for a lifetime exposure, the EPA is looking at regulating that at 4 parts per quadrillion. That cannot even be measured by any known technology. So that is essentially a regulator's way of saying it will be 0. The 4 parts per trillion can be measured, and that's what came up at, I believe, 8.7 parts per trillion on one of our wells, and 4.3. Please forgive me, I can't remember if that's 4.4 or 4.3. The 4.3, we did retest and just got those results back, and there's no PFAS, and that was not a surprise out of that particular water source. It was a deep Denver Basin well. We only have 2 of those, and it would have been surprising to me and to our engineers to have found PFAS at depths of 1,500 to 1,800 feet. That did come back negative the second time, so that we know was probably just a testing anomaly. The other one came back about the exact same amount. So if the state is going to make these regulations this low, we will be required to build a water treatment facility. We think that we will likely use ion exchange to remove all of those PFAS compounds that we do anticipate will be regulated this year, making those limits actually a regulatory limit. Up until now, they are not regulatory. Last year, when those tests came back with a detect, the CDPHE asked us to send a letter to our customers saying that those had been detected. And they asked all other water providers who had had detects out of this voluntary program to do the same. We did ask them what they provided the verbiage for that letter, and we asked them how we were to address the concerns from people who were getting a letter saying that we were exceeding a limit when there is no limit. It's a very difficult, very tenuous thing to send out in terms of messaging. So we worked with CDPHE on that. They did require that all water providers who tested any detect over the 4 parts per trillion to send out a letter. But that letter specifically says, you do not need to stop drinking the water. There is no immediate health risk. That being said, we are planning to build a water treatment facility because we do believe these standards will be regulated, and we will be required to treat to that level. And that's fine. We didn't put those compounds into the water, but we will take them out. These are what you have heard of as those forever chemicals. So that's kind of where we got to the PFAS issue. It is something that we are working very aggressively toward doing, and this year will be our pilot study and additional repeat testing that we will work with our board to determine the best design going forward for this water treatment facility, which for us will include land acquisition and then a design and construction contract that the board will approve. We do believe that CDPHE will give all water providers who have tested at these very, very low limits probably 3 years for compliance. Again, no immediate health risk, but looking at the future and whether or not there will ever be restrictions on manufacturing of these chemicals, what we know is that they make their ways into water supplies. And so we're going to make sure that we have a facility to treat them. So that's kind of where we got on the PFAS issue. Our water is extremely, it is pristine groundwater from the Upper Black Squirrel designated groundwater basin. It is renewable by rain and snowmelt, and we do discharge and have a replacement plan in front of the Groundwater Commission right now in order to continue to produce clean groundwater for our customers.
Commissioner Geithner.
So always one more question. Okay, so, and again, Commissioner Williams and I are doing a handoff on the Water Authority, and so I previously served on the Water Authority, as many people are probably aware, and then Commissioner Williams had it the last year, and I'm coming back on. So I haven't had as many direct conversations, but can you tell me with that group or as a, just a member of the kind of water district community, is this issue unique to Cherokee then, or is this something we're seeing across the board with water districts?
This is across the board. We are going to see water providers throughout Colorado and the United States deal with this issue. And there have been some other states that are looking at legislation to not allow these limits to be lowered so far because it's so difficult to achieve these limits by a regulatory standard and get these compounds out. Again, water providers are not putting these compounds in. So it's a very difficult situation around the country, arguably around the globe. And your exposure to these kinds of compounds does not just come from your water, as I know you are probably all very aware. It comes from a variety of things. It started, I think, with largely Teflon in the 1950s and has expanded since then. I remember running around as a kid in the snow, spraying our jeans with Scotchgard. Yeah, I'm that old. And we would run out in the snow and keep our jeans dry, but that's loaded with PFAS. It's all that water-resistant, stain-resistant kind of compounds there. Carbon chains that are a variety of different types of carbon chains that are added to manufactured goods, including the lining of your coffee cup and Keurig cups and popcorn bags and textiles. Textiles apparently are the second known source of PFAS exposure. Your carpeting, et cetera. Just a myriad of products that have these compounds, and they do make their way into the water system. So to the extent that we can control that, we absolutely will.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions for Ms. Lathan at this time. I think we have one more member of the public ready to speak. Thank you.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hello? Yes, good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is the Board of County Commission meeting, and we can hear you in the auditorium. Please introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes, please.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Jan Cedarberg, and first I apologize for not being able to attend in person today. Thank you very much for letting me call in. I am a former board member of 8 years at Cherokee. I was on the board when we got the idea for the pipeline that is now called the Loop. We started that from scratch with an idea to finish a pipeline that we could use for future benefit. We came in under budget and finished it in time. I started out, I attended conferences. I understand wastewater and water, and especially how it pertains to Cherokee. I know the history of Cherokee, and I'm still live in the district, and so I understand what we need and what we can use. And I just think I can contribute a lot to the Cherokee Metro Board and represent the citizens of the district. Do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions for Ms. Cedarberg?
I will continue with my standard questions here. So could you just answer whether you ran in the last election, and if you did not, why you chose not to run in that election but are seeking the appointment now?
Yes, I did. I ran in the last election. Yeah.
Any further questions, Commissioner Geiner? Or from anybody else? Okay. Ms. Cedarberg, thank you for calling in. We appreciate your ability to hop online and speak with us today. Is there anyone else in the public wishing to speak on this item? Please introduce yourself and you can begin.
My name is Lacey Keep. Sorry, I'm not good at this. I was not going to do this, but after listening to what I did, I feel like you're missing a big part of the picture. I own a home in this district. My 6 special needs children drink this water. It is not of good quality. I actually admin on Nextdoor for our community, and so I have to see all the times that people get into all the fights about all the things, and I have to try to help calm that down. And I would say a good 50% of that is arguments over our water quality. The amount of people that have had to spend thousands of dollars, it has nothing to do with PFAS, We have hard water. We have washers and dryers and dishwashers and dishwashers and garbage disposals and sinks and toilets that have to be replaced yearly. We have people who are sick. My kids won't drink our tap water because it tastes like chlorine. I have providers that work in my home through a Medicaid waiver. They have to bring their own bottled water because our water tastes so bad and makes them sick. There's a school that was just built behind my house. Those children are drinking this water, and then the people who are supposed to be helping us come and stand here and tell you how great it is. Well, I have to pay for it. I have to pay for it to come into my house, and then I have to pay for the damage it does. And I have to pay for the bottled water because my teens think that it smells. We've put external filters on our refrigerators. It doesn't help. Those filters have to be replaced every month because our water is not good. And all they can do is argue about it. Our board has been on that same people, this Dennis. His behavior is atrocious. I also didn't know that we could vote, even though we've lived there since 2019. That's not made aware. Our options and what is our rights, none of that is given to us well. And that polling place, you literally have to show up between this time and this time. Well, I don't know about you, but we have jobs and kids and activities, and that's not always easy to be like, oh, this one time for these 4 hours, I have to show up here to have a say in my water quality. We are not well represented. And all these people just want to fight, but we need you to stand up for us. For my kids, for my friends that live in this, for this school whose kids are also drinking this water that is not good. Or else we wouldn't be paying for filters and replacement appliances. The amount of comments that I moderate about this very thing is hundreds. This isn't a couple of people complaining. This is hundreds of people who are replacing things and dealing with health issues and filters and bottled water daily. Please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else at this time wishing to speak on this item before I close the public comment portion? Last call in the auditorium. And one last check. Anyone else online? Okay. At this point, we're going to take a brief recess. There are restrooms upstairs if you would like to utilize those. I think we'll be back in 5 minutes. Very brief recess for discussion amongst the board and a decision. Thank you. Welcome back to the January 16th meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I do understand that right as I announced that we were closing the public input portion, someone had notified our booth upstairs by email. So we're going to allow that one more public comment and then bring it up here for discussion and a motion.
Unknown participant
Hello,
is
this is
now
Dan.
joining.
Hello, welcome to the Board of County
Hello.
Commissioners meeting. We can hear you in the auditorium. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes will begin. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I'm grateful to the BOCC for allowing me to speak at this late notice. I listened to the whole meeting, start to finish. One thing that's concerning me is, and I do understand Commissioner Geithner's logical pathway in choosing the next vote getter, basically the next amount of votes, because that is there. You're absolutely sure that voters voted for them. It's just what we're saying is they actually voted against him on So one of the candidates, Jeremy, he's intelligent. He sees the complicated issues for what they're worth. He's fiscally conservative. He's passionate about making things more efficient and keeping customer rates from going too high too quickly. Kim's the same. I would support Kim or Jeremy. Water's more complicated than most people realize. But this process today doesn't need to be. But it also doesn't need to be oversimplified in choosing just the next amount of votes. What I'm about to say will probably be the truest measure of whether you listen to public comments before making your decision or not. If you choose to
Can I interrupt you
pick the
1
next-
second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll give you your extra 5 seconds, but can you please introduce yourself clearly for the record?
I'm sorry. It's Dan Wall, W-A-L-L. I'm the board member
you.
that actually resigned. And hopefully you heard the rest of it. But I'm about to say that something that I think would be the truest measure of whether you listen to public comments before making your decision. If you choose to pick the person with the next amount of votes during the last election, I would instead ask you to simply appoint me back onto the board. Friday, I got a clean bill of health from my cardiologist. And just to give you a quick background without getting into too many details, I showed Steve and Michelle Marie Kinney, the president, my watch during multiple meetings, and my heart rate would go off the charts on my watch. So I saw a cardiologist at the Air Force Academy. Just in the 2 or 3 months I've been off the board, he's gave me medication. I've done PT at the Air Force Academy. I've got back to where I can sit and I don't have tachycardia. Basically, I sit there and my heart rate doesn't go off the charts if I'm not exercising. It shouldn't be like that, but that's the way it was. I'm better now, and I would much rather you pick Kim or Jeremy, but if you're going to simply choose the next person that got the next amount of votes, I can tell you that I'm obviously qualified and eligible. I was elected and won it by a large margin, took the oath of office just 7 months ago. I've only been off the board 2 or 3 months, gone to the meetings, and I've been attending online. But again, if you're going to choose that pathway, I would rather you choose me than somebody and my constituents, or at least my past constituents, my neighbors from all over the district, they're telling me they want me back on rather than Dennis. So thank you for allowing me to speak at this late moment, but I appreciate you guys taking your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. With that, we are going to move to some deliberations and
Unknown
discussions.
participant
up
is
here.
now exiting.
Would like to start it off. Commissioner Gonzalez.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of information here. That last call, Yeah, that adds, I think, a little difference, nuance, I think. I think the discussions and I don't think I contacted or had any contact from anybody outside of the emails that came to all of us. So I don't know any of the members, participants, other than the president or CEO, because of different previous county commissioner. And the only emails I received were the ones that came, I believe, to all of the county commissioners or to the staff that were then forwarded to me. So I don't know any of the players until all this came forward. That being said, on the information I've seen, had this been a request to fill it through say, like 1 year to get to the next election, I would have been probably pretty comfortable with the next vote getter down. But we're being asked to fill this for the next 3 years, not just to get them to the next election. So to me, that changed the scenario a little bit on whether I felt comfortable doing that way. And so we have the 4 candidates had submitted. I had looked at all the information, re-looked at it during the meeting, the background, and then we had 3 of the 4 here or call in and provide information. We also have 2 of the board members, sitting board members here. The person who wasn't here was Dennis Daniels, and the other 2 board members. So from my perspective, seeing that we're trying to fill it for the full 3 years, I would have been more comfortable with any of the 3 that called in. But then the gentleman also called in who said he would consider being put back on if we were to use the next vote getter down. So of the people that called in, again, I don't know anybody. I looked at the resumes. People called in. I personally would feel comfortable based on all that with either Dan Wall going back on or Kim Wilson based on resumes. Thank you.
Commissioner Williams?
I don't know if we could ask the county attorney. I don't know if Dan Wall is qualified because he didn't submit an application.
Thank you, Commissioner. My office would need to confirm his eligibility to serve based on his residence. I think that's probably a foregone conclusion considering that he recently served on this board. But there is no application requirement necessary for consideration in this process.
Okay. I wanted to say a few things. I think that I appreciate everyone who's come here today. And my first statement was going to be my frustration that you didn't pass a budget, but you did. So that just took that budget question right off the table. Thank you. The most important thing about making sure board runs is, since there's not a provision to our knowledge in state statutes that automatically continues a budget, I appreciate the fact that you came to a budget so that staff and services could continue to be provided in a timely manner. I am of the belief that I would like to see a new direction on the board. As I've been reading through these applications, I was actually impressed by Ms. Wilson, and she has a lot of experience, but I was actually leaning more towards Jeremy Atkinson because he has been attending meetings for 3 years, and so I could go either way on those 2. I was disappointed that Mr. Daniels did not come this morning, and I could certainly consider Mr. Wall as well if that is if the county attorney decides that he is eligible to serve. I assume since he was considered, he would be eligible since he was previously elected.
Commissioner Geithner?
Thank you. Since I think at the very least a majority, if not all of this district resides in my district, this is of particular interest to me. I also have a school that I am the board president of that resides in this district. So, you know, the concerns being discussed again are of are of grave concern to me, though I do not own a home in this district. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness, all the questions and comments of both the public and my fellow commissioners. This is a complicated one, as we've talked about. I've already stated very transparently that I think guessing at the will of the voters and guessing at was this a vote for or against someone is tenuous at best. Having participated in many elections and participated in the campaigning portions of these, I think, again, it's very tenuous to try and guess what is in voters' minds. And for that reason, I think, again, oftentimes I hear boards in this situation going to that second vote getter because I can see who did vote, but I can't assume the votes of people of why they didn't vote for someone or what their reasoning is. It's hard for me to know if their second choice would have been a different person, and I don't like to get into guessing games. So I am personally not comfortable with going outside of that at this point. As I stated, I asked a lot of questions about extenuating circumstances and other things that might be helpful in kind of moving away from that feeling that that was the best way to honor the will of voters. And again, as I said, reasonable people can disagree. Certainly others may have different feelings, but that is mine. To be very frank, though, on the concerns that were brought forward, I do not see those same concerns. Asking the question of both the manager and having firsthand knowledge of water and working very closely in this space, I just do not see those concerns as being extenuating or outside of the norm of what other water districts in our community are facing. Certainly that will not be popular with some folks here, but again, having a school that is located in this district, we have not had any of the issues that are being described. I can also say that I don't drink the tap water in Meridian Ranch. And I know a lot of people do not because of chlorination, because of lots of quality issues, but I also know that there are a lot of regulations and water quality reports that have to be met. And it's the same thing in all of those water districts. So I do not find the circumstances extenuating for me to move outside of that desire to honor the will of the voters as I can see it. The petition that has been presented, I have no way of verifying. It's not a valid part of the election system. So I can't say whether any of those are valid, invalid, whether folks actually sign that. And we talk a lot about election security here. It happened this morning. I can't fault the district for choosing a polling place in person either. A lot of folks come before us and tell us they would prefer to have in-person voting. So we hear lots of different opinions in this room. I just don't see any of those at this point moving me off of the desire to only look at that second highest vote getter. So I'm going to say that it is my position that I would be willing to appoint a second highest vote getter or no one and ask the district to go back to the drawing board, especially hearing the last comment. So that is my position as the resident commissioner.
Okay. Discussion, Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comments of everybody here. My sense of it is that from what I've heard, the testimony I've heard, the resumes I'm looking at, it seems like we have a lot of good qualified candidates for this. But I am intrigued by Mr. Wall's willingness to come back on the board now that he has a clean bill of health. I'll just simply make that point. And there is a process there where, if I'm looking at this correctly, he received a large number of votes, and it was a personal issue, a health issue that was the challenge. So just simply make that point. Will reserve any specific endorsement of any candidate, but I find that to be an intriguing point, and I'll wait for a motion and a second, and we'll see where we go with that. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Commissioner Williams.
And I appreciate that Dan Wall brought his name forward. I just feel like that the individuals who spent the time to come out today and talk to us did not know that until after. And so I don't feel like I have the full opinion on them. And so I'm probably not in favor of Dan Wall, but let's see where a motion gets us.
You know, I also appreciate Mr. Wall's willingness to throw his hat back in the ring. I have, I'm not here to certainly, I'm not here to pass any personal judgment on anybody. I'm here to look at resumes, qualifications, and the right thing to do process-wise. This is somewhat precedent-setting, and so I've always said that as county commissioners, we're stewards of the process. Now, usually that's our own. We're not usually inserted into someone else's. So, I mean, I think we've heard some great testimony today, and yeah, we have now. What I would consider five people to consider. In my mind, it is certainly I think that it's a great thing to have involved people. I think regardless of what conclusion this board comes to today, I hope that continued involvement by everyone who is interested, former board members, everybody, because, you know, from sitting on a board here, I can tell you that that oftentimes impacts are made from those who are not necessarily serving on the board, and it's always, we depend on the input and the understanding the full impacts from everybody who's willing to share those with us. So I think this is perhaps a good problem to have. I do want to see those of you who are currently in leadership on the board, I want to see that no matter what decision is made today, that you all can continue to work forward for the good of the district, and keep in mind that you too are stewards of a process. I've heard a lot about the efforts for that today, and also stewards of, of the financials and of the actual service or product you're providing. So all of that to say, I think we have a difficult decision in front of us. And as the resident commissioner, do we have a motion that will be made at this time?
I will make a motion that we appoint the second highest vote getter in the district.
Would you mind clarifying the name, please?
Yes, that's Dennis Daniels.
Any discussion on that, or a second?
Discussion-wise, Mr. Walls has put himself back in, so he was the higher balloted candidate. So, thanks.
Can we have clarification from our county attorney, and I think I heard it, but very, very clearly, that Mr. Walls would be qualified to be considered in our process today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that he would. If the board were to appoint him today, it could be contingent on my staff confirming that he still lives in the district and is a registered elector there.
Okay. Do we have any knowledge otherwise that he's not eligible?
We do not.
Commissioner Geithner.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment because that certainly would have been an ideal situation. for this to either have never happened or for that to be worked out. My concern that was a very last minute entry, and that to me, if that's what we are looking at doing, the board has not had the ability to consider that. That's what makes me uncomfortable about that situation. If that's the case, then I would prefer we allow the board the opportunity to consider that on their own, rather than make that decision here if that is truly a new, is very fresh here to put that in, was not a big part of the consideration. So it does throw a wrench in it. And again, my willingness to intervene in this situation is based on the long time attempt to fill this that was not able to. And if the board itself was not able to consider that, I would rather, again, I think we either need to move forward with the information that has been readily available both to the district and to this board up to this point, or not make a decision and ask the board to go back now that they have new information and reconsider at that point.
So there is a motion on the table. So do we have a second on that motion, just to keep this procedurally clean?
Yeah, I can second it for the purposes of a vote.
That has been moved and seconded. There is clearly further discussion occurring at this point. So unless that motion, were those comments about withdrawing your original motion, Commissioner Geithner?
Again, I guess that is the real question here for me today, and I welcome the thoughts of my colleagues here on that. But that is really that is a wrench, so to speak, in the system of where we thought we were, which is at a stalemate. Now we've added another equation. I don't like the idea of considering something that the board itself has not been able to consider. And yet, I also think, there has been quite a time period, and the statute requires so much time to get here. So I hate to also reset the clock and create that issue. So I'm conflicted between those two things, but those are the two options that make the most sense to me based on where we are, the history of what has gotten us here, and the fact that we either, in my opinion, either should say, hey, there's a wrench in the system and we're going to redo this entire process, or move forward with what I think I would have been most comfortable with without a wrench being thrown in, which is that second vote getter. So those are the two things that I am willing to entertain at this point. And I think that it is obviously going to depend upon the feelings of the rest of this board.
Mr. County Attorney, can I ask, if I ask some very pointed questions, perhaps of the current board chair, just procedurally, ask her to stick to those answers? Are we good to go?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
Okay. If I could, thank you. Can you can see that we're taking this responsibility very seriously.
I appreciate that.
and
It's not easy.
Giving everyone full exploration of the options. Can you tell us whether you feel like well, first of all, how often are your meetings?
They're once a month.
Once a month.
Mhm.
When is the next one?
The next one is tonight.
Okay.
And we are hoping to seat a new board member.
Okay.
Or a board member.
Is that a regularly scheduled board meeting or a special one for the appointment?
It is, and it's a regular scheduled one. Mhm.
Can you tell us whether you think that your board could come to a solution tonight? If we were to, because I agree with Commissioner Geithner's comments with staying within statutory limits, not resetting the clock. A lot of time and effort has been put into this by everyone. We've now gone through a full, complete public hearing. But I would be open to a continuance that would then happen within a week. If
You're
I think it gives
asking-
us another option,
Yeah, you're
basically. I'm
asking-
asking you if you think that one more board meeting of consideration of all the candidates that we've now been presented with
Right.
is enough for you all to come to a solution.
I base usually a lot of my opinions on the behaviors and the actions of the previous behaviors and actions of others. And it's my observation that our other two board members were emphatic. They were unwilling to discuss the pros and cons and deliberate, just as you are doing here. They were unwilling to do so. They were not willing to explain to us why they thought Dennis would be a good choice. It was Dennis Daniels or no one, and they're not considering anyone. I am concerned about, to be very honest with you, I don't know that we would do any better. This is when, as I said, we voted, which even surprised me, 68% of the time unanimously on business decisions with 4 people. That's pretty, I think it's fairly surprising. But when it came to this issue, it was a line in the sand, and it was a no discussion. They would not consider anyone else. So, you know, I don't know what people would do, but I have no reason to believe we would come to any other solution but a 2-2 unless it's Dennis Daniels. And what I am also concerned about now at this point is the candidates who applied and did so in earnest, came to meetings, spoke to us, did all of that, were not even being considered. And so I wonder if it serves the public's better good to have some perfectly good candidates and string them along some more. I mean, we're here, we're ready, I think we'd really appreciate a decision from you. If you want any further opinions from me, I have plenty. So that's
Let's keep it to the questions asked very directly. Thank you. At this point,
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just make the point, I deeply appreciate all of the comments that have been provided, those online, those in person. And as we've been going through this testimony, it's obvious, it's becoming clear some of the challenges that you've been facing and trying to reach a resolution. It's been difficult to get there, and that's, of course, why we are here today.
Right.
My sense of it is that at this point, I feel like we do have an opportunity to help this board. I will make the point that Mr. Wall did receive the majority of votes at the time that he was voted in. And then he had an unfortunate circumstance, which fortunately at this point is cleared. And notwithstanding whatever might have happened procedurally with regard to, say, for example, I don't even know if this happened, if he submitted a resignation in writing and then the board accepted the resignation and those kinds of things. If those procedures took place, then there would need to be, notwithstanding whatever this board decides, there would need to be something from Mr. Wall rescinding that letter of resignation if he did submit something. I don't know if he did it verbally or in writing or whatever.
It was an email. I am not aware of any mechanism where it can be rescinded. I'm not the lawyer in the family, but I believe a vacancy's a vacancy, and it, from what I read, it is, aside from all the flowery language about accepting and accepting with grace and all of that, when a resignation is submitted, it's effective right then. It's there. So I believe he would need to be reappointed if that's your desire. Obviously, I do not feel that there would be any pushback from the public on that. I mean, you know, the numbers are in front of you. To go along with the highest vote getter, he certainly was, he certainly won by a landslide.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that very much. And notwithstanding the very thoughtful comments from Commissioner Geithner, and I agree with those comments, I do feel at this point, now that Mr. Wall has agreed to go back on the board, just feel like maybe we're in a place where we could help this board out, get us back to an individual that won by a large margin, that just had an unfortunate personal circumstance, notwithstanding whatever took place as far as email correspondence and those kinds of things. So as I've been listening to the deliberations, this just becomes, I think in my humble opinion, you know, and it is only my opinion, perhaps maybe the best choice. So I would just offer those comments for continued deliberation on our board here.
Commissioner Geithner.
Madam Chair, I still hold that I don't want to make a decision on information that their own board has not received. So my suggestion, if we can confirm with our attorney that we can do a continuance and not reset the complete clock, would be to continue this item so that the board has the ability to consider that information, and yet we're not setting the clock. So we kind of preserve the ability to have that conversation in the future. But again, the entire process of this is set up in statute to give the board itself every effort and ability to govern itself. And I would like to see the board, who is not all present here, have all of that information in front of them and have the opportunity to discuss it tonight. Perhaps, you know, it will end up in a stalemate, perhaps it won't, but I think a week is not going to be so detrimental that we can't offer that board the opportunity to operate autonomously.
So I tend to agree. One of our urgent needs to address this did have to do with passing a budget. So I think I'm in agreement with all the things that you just said. I do know that we currently have a motion made by Commissioner Geithner on the table and seconded by Commissioner Williams. So we have a couple of options. You can withdraw that still at this point. We could go to a vote with that original motion. I, at this point, see it most likely being a failing one, given the discussion that we've just had.
So if I could confirm with our attorney that we could just do a continuance here and that would not reset the clock.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I believe you could continue to a date certain. The statute's not really clear on any other provisions as to whether or not the letter that we sent to the Cherokee District Board would be invalidated in any way, shape, or form if we were to do a short continuance to a date certain. I believe the chair's reminded everybody that there's a motion and second pending currently. And just a point of clarification, I believe the district board chair is correct as far as being unable to rescind. If Mr. Wall or anybody was appointed, it would be to the next regularly scheduled election.
So Madam Chair, then I would withdraw my motion.
I'm fine with that.
And the seconder is?
And then I would move that we continue this item to a date certain of next Tuesday is the 23rd.
I will second that. And I would like to, I have my doubts that they will get out of their stalemate. So based upon my doubts, which could be proven wrong, you just never know, I would like to see Mr. Wall submit an application for next Tuesday if he truly wants to serve. Just to Mr. Hodges, our county attorney.
That sounds very reasonable to me, and I will I will point out that last week, as you all came and spoke in public comment, there was pretty clear direction that everyone who was eligible and had thrown their hat in the ring, that we got to see all of that. And I think that in being consistent with that, yes, I would agree. I'd like to see the same thing from Mr. Walls. I am hoping that you all can come to a conclusion this evening in the interest of moving things forward. But we're also, I think I'd like to see it continued to a date certain of next Tuesday, the 23rd, so that the regular business can continue and you don't go through another month of a board meeting you're following without having this position filled. So at this point, we seem to be in a spot where we have the flexibility to encourage you all to come to that conclusion or consider it all for yourselves and come back to us with that information about why it couldn't have come. So there is a motion and a second to continue to a date certain of January 23rd. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate the motion in the second. I do also feel, and all the thoughtful comments from all the commissioners and everybody that testified, I do feel we are in a unique position here, based on Colorado statute, to help this board resolve its differences. Now, we have a motion in a second, and we're going to have a vote on that. I will be voting nay. And then, depending on how that vote goes, I will introduce, I'd like to introduce another motion to appoint Dan Wall, and then we'll see how that vote goes. But we have a motion in a second. We have a process to follow, and we're going to follow that process. But I just wanted my fellow commissioners to know that I think we're in a place where we have an opportunity to resolve this definitively on behalf of this board, and also on behalf of a person that is still interested in serving, and at the time that he ran for election received an overwhelming number of votes coming from the constituents for this board. So I'll just make that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Vanderwerf's comments. I greatly appreciate your comments earlier about him. This was a health issue. And the fact that he's able to recover, I just appreciate that, that he's healthy again to be able to consider this. So thank you. You've changed the dynamic again, Commissioner Vanderwerf, with your comments, so that I need to consider in the next few seconds. Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds for clarifying. The motion on the table is for a continuance to January 23rd, which puts it 1 week from today, in hopes that will also be.
Are you done with me?
Say that again.
Any other
yes, I
questions
am.
for me?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that. And with strong encouragement to the board to consider everything that was considered by us today, and should you not come to resolution, we will be considering that again next week. So the motion on the table is for continuance to January 23rd. Calling the roll. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Nay.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Nay.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 3-2. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 11.
Item number 11 is department and committee reports, non-action items, and there are none.
Item 12.
Item number 12 is the addendum, and there are no addendums today.
Item 13.
Item 13 is executive session, and there is no request for executive session.
This regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners is adjourned. Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, January 16th meeting of Public Improvement District Number 3. Calling that to order. Item number 1.
Item number 1 is the consent calendar inclusive of items 1A through 1C.
Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on items 1A through C? Hearing none. None online.
I move approval of items 1A through C.
I'll
Second.
second. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Geithner, you can have the second.
Oh, well, thank you. I'll second.
That has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I didn't know whose district it was in, so maybe I was wrong, but
Commissioner Williams.
aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Geithner.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That passes 5-0. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is the called up consent calendar, and there are none.
This meeting is adjourned.